I'm Rachel, standing in my grandmother's backyard. The air thick with tension, I watched as the truth finally came to light. My sister, Emily, had just been exposed for her lies and manipulations, and the fallout was about to begin. It all started 8 months ago when I discovered that $12,000 had vanished from the joint savings account I'd set up with Emily to help cover our grandmother's medical expenses. I'd been making regular deposits of $500 every month for 2 years, a total of $12,000. But when I checked the balance one evening, it was down to just $847. I was shocked and angry. I immediately called Emily, who brushed it off as an investment opportunity in real estate. She promised me that the money would double in 6 months. But I knew better. I drove to my parents' house that night, hoping they'd help me get the money back. Instead, they sided with Emily, accusing me of being selfish and overreacting. That was the moment I realized that something had fundamentally broken in my family. I'd always been the easy one, the one who understood and went along with everything. Emily, being the older sister, had always gotten the better of everything: the bigger bedroom, the new clothes, and even a spot at a private university while I went to community college. My parents always used the same excuse: "The family's finances are tight right now, sweetie. You understand, don't you?" I'd become a nurse, working my way up to the ICU at a local hospital. I had a stable income and good benefits, but somehow that made me the family ATM. Over the years, I'd loaned my family over $34,000, and not a single dollar had ever been returned. I'd told myself it was fine, that family helps family. But deep down, I knew I was being taken advantage of. After that night at my parents' house, I blocked all their numbers and cut off contact. It was the first time in years that I'd felt truly at peace. I rented a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood and installed a Ring camera for safety. I started taking better care of myself, and my coworkers noticed the change. "You seem lighter," my friend Lily said one night. "Like someone took a weight off your shoulders." But then, 3 weeks ago, my grandmother's 75th birthday was approaching, and I got a text from an unknown number. It was my grandmother, using a neighbor's phone, inviting me to her birthday party. She said she had something important to tell the family and wanted me there. I was torn. I wanted to see my grandmother, but I knew Emily would be there, too. 3 days later, my doorbell rang. I opened the Ring app on my phone, expecting to see a delivery driver or a neighbor. Instead, I saw my parents and Emily standing on my porch. But they weren't just standing there, they were rehearsing. Emily was directing them like a director on a stage, telling my mom to practice her tears and my dad to memorize his lines. I watched in disbelief as they rehearsed for 12 minutes. They had no idea that my Ring camera was recording everything. I saved the video and backed it up to the cloud. Then I made a decision. I was going to answer the door, but not the way they expected. When I opened the door, my mom immediately started her performance, tears welling up in her eyes. "Rachel, baby, we've missed you so much," she said. I looked at her calmly and asked, "How many times did you practice that?" She froze, mid-sob. My dad's rehearsed line died in his throat, and Emily's composure cracked for a split second. I pointed to the Ring camera and said, "That's a Ring camera. It records 24/7, including the 12 minutes before you rang the bell." The silence that followed was deafening. My mom's fake tears stopped instantly, and my dad looked at the ground. Emily tried to recover, accusing me of violating their privacy. But I stood my ground. My dad finally spoke, saying that my grandmother's 75th birthday was next week and she wanted me there. I told him I knew, that she'd texted me. I said I'd come for my grandmother, not for them. Emily wasn't used to losing control of a situation. She tried to convince me to arrive at the party together, but I refused. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Emily's strange phone call on the porch. She'd mentioned a deadline, but I didn't know what it was for. I decided to reach out to my Aunt Sarah, my mom's younger sister, and a family law attorney. She'd always been the one I could trust in the family. I told her everything: the video, the rehearsed apology, and Emily's phone call. She let out a long sigh and said she wasn't surprised. She'd seen through Emily's manipulations for years. She also told me that my grandmother had asked her about inheritance law last month. She suspected that my grandmother was reconsidering some things, especially regarding her house, a beautiful Victorian home worth close to $800,000. I realized then that Emily wasn't trying to reconcile with me. She was trying to manage a narrative, and I'd just become a threat to her plan. The next morning, I opened our old family group chat and scrolled through the messages. I found a series of texts where Emily and my mom had been discussing how to manipulate me. They'd called me useful and assumed I'd never say no. I screenshot everything and created a folder on my phone with the Ring video and the group chat screenshots. I decided that I wasn't going to Grandma's party to make a scene. I was going to tell the truth and have proof. Saturday finally arrived, and I made my way to my grandmother's house. When I walked in, my grandmother's face lit up. She pulled me into a hug and said, "My sweet girl, you came." I looked over her shoulder and saw Emily watching me with a fake smile. The party unfolded, and I could feel Emily's eyes on me. She tried to corner me halfway through the party, but I didn't let her get to me. I noticed that her husband, Jake, looked miserable. He was drinking heavily and scrolling through his phone with a furrowed brow. After dinner, I excused myself to find the restroom. On my way back, I passed the open kitchen window and heard Jake on the phone. He was talking to someone about a $50,000 gambling debt. He said that Emily had been using the money from the joint savings account to pay off her debts and that she was desperate to get me to the party to present a united front to our grandmother before the inheritance announcement. I was shocked. It all made sense now. Emily's rehearsed apology, her desperation to get me to the party, it was all about the inheritance. I walked back to the party, my mind made up. I wasn't going to expose Emily, but if she pushed me, I wouldn't protect her either. As the sun began to set, my grandmother stood up and said she had something to say. She started by talking about the past and how we'd treated each other in the family. She mentioned favoritism and taking advantage of those who were too kind to say no. Her gaze drifted to me for a moment. Then, she turned to me and asked, "Rachel, sweetheart, why haven't you spoken to your parents in 8 months?" I took a deep breath and told her about the savings account and how Emily had taken the money. I also told her about how my parents had sided with Emily and accused me of being selfish. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily tried to defend herself, saying that she was trying to grow the money for our grandmother's benefit. But my grandmother wasn't buying it. She asked Emily if she'd taken the money, and Emily finally cracked. She admitted that she'd taken the money and that she was going to pay it back. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Jake then stood up and revealed Emily's gambling debt. He said that she'd been lying to all of us for years. Emily turned on him, but it was too late. The truth was out. Emily tried to blame me, saying that I'd planned the whole thing. But I pulled out my phone and played the Ring video. The video showed Emily directing my parents to rehearse their apology, saying that they didn't have to mean it, just make me think they were sorry. The video ended, and there was a moment of silence. My grandmother then said that she'd heard enough. She said that she loved Emily, but she couldn't trust her. She also said that she was going to meet with her attorney to update her estate documents, and that those who had shown her real love would be taken care of. The party was over, and the fallout began. My mom approached me, angry and hurt. She said I'd humiliated Emily in front of the whole family. I told her that Emily had humiliated herself and that I'd just stopped covering for her. I also told her that I loved her, but I couldn't have a relationship with people who didn't respect me. My dad sent me an email a few days later, saying that he loved me and was sorry. He said he was trying to learn how to be a better father. I was glad to hear that, but I knew it would take time for us to rebuild our relationship. As for Emily, she unfriended half the family on social media and her real estate website went dark. I heard that she'd enrolled in Gamblers Anonymous, and I hoped she'd get the help she needed. But I also knew that I couldn't be responsible for her anymore. 1 month later, life had found a new rhythm. I still worked at the hospital, and I had dinner with my grandmother every Sunday. We'd sit in her garden, sipping tea and talking about life. She never told me what was in the updated will, and I never asked. It wasn't about the money. It was about finally being able to tell my side of the story and standing up for myself. I'd learned that love isn't about silent suffering. It's about honesty, respect, and choosing each other because you genuinely want to. I'd finally stopped abandoning myself for people who didn't deserve my loyalty, and I was learning to love the version of me that said no and kept receipts. If you've ever had to set boundaries with your family, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's one of the hardest things you can do, but it's also one of the most important. You're allowed to love your family and protect yourself from them at the same time. Trust that feeling in your gut, and don't let anyone make you feel selfish for taking care of yourself. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And if you want more stories like this about family, boundaries, and finding your way through the mess, check the description. I've linked a few that I think you'll connect with. Thank you for listening.